Okay. The Lord is good. Stronghold in the day of trouble. He knows them that trust in him. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not to your own understanding. Acknowledge him in all your ways. He'll direct your paths for good. But many people don't believe in God. They believe in reincarnation. Those are the two camps. I've been watching a lot of videos on the NDE. That's the near-death experience. And the majority of the NDE is people who believe in reincarnation, or people that believe in no judgment, because the God of the Bible is the judge. You know, that's what he says. He's known for the judgment that he executes. And a lot of these NDEs, you have to believe from a biblical perspective, are deception. But they're very good deception, and I don't fully understand why a lot of these things are allowed. You know, there's so many questions about why things are allowed. You know, things are allowed in this world the way they are, but when all is said and done, you either believe in reincarnation or you believe in a supreme creator, God. Because the people that believe in reincarnation don't seem to be talking too much about God. They don't believe in hell. That's also important. And hell is a very big issue. It's a very hated doctrine, and I don't like it either. But, you know, where are you going to put mass murderers? What are you going to do with serial killers and other people that are just brutal? Warmongers, people that fund wars, government people that are funding wars that are totally unnecessary, totally not right. They're not just. The wars are not just. But murder is a big deal. But what are you going to do with them? And then the bad news is, I was just thinking today, is that they're not even dead. So all the serial killers, but then many people say, oh, but they're in hell. Well, but they're not dead. So all the serial killers are still alive somewhere. I have a problem with that. You know, I thought when they died, they were dead. I would like to know that. But, you know, even if they're in hell, they're not dead. But they really can't kill anybody anymore, so that's good. I was watching one video. It was a Buddhist who had a near-death experience, and he went to hell. And he was saying how the Buddhists, they don't believe in hell. But he went there anyway. But they're always incomplete. There's not nearly enough detail for me, for my liking. No. A lot of times it'll be hardly anything. They have this experience out of their bodies, and then it's very short, and then they're back in their body. And then they become some kind of a shaman or a worshiper of other gods other than the God of Jesus and the God of Moses. So, continuing on with our analysis of this book of Revelation, I wrote here the summary of chapter 10. To just summarize the ridiculous chapter 10, an angel supposedly comes down from heaven with a little book. I went over this in the previous message. I actually compared it with the account in the Old Testament where they copied it. Comes down from heaven with a little book and makes John eat it, and it makes his stomach upset, and then we never hear about it again. So that's how ridiculous a lot of these things are in this book. And it was put there by man. Men put the book in the Bible. I mean, the Bible books are assembled by men. They were assembled a long time ago. Men decided what books they should be in the Bible. And men make mistakes. So then we look at some of these verses in chapter 11. We're just going to move to chapter 11. Revelation 11, 1 through 7. And we'll start reading all this ridiculous writing. And there was given me a reed like a rod. Like a rod. That's a small piece of wood. And the angel stood, saying, Rise and measure the temple of God. Why? Which temple? And the altar. Why? And them that worship therein. And them that worship therein. That's the strange thing about that altar. I said a little bit about that before. There might be more to it later. But all these angels at one point come out of the altar. They're inside the altar. I said, what? What are you talking about? And then there was all those souls under the altar moaning and groaning. Well, they were supposedly saved. They were martyred for God, martyred for Jesus, and they were complaining, is a better word. They were under the altar. They were complaining to God that he hadn't judged them yet. And that's silly. I mean, that's just silly. But, and I say, well, which temple? Is it the temple that was there at the time? Well, actually, at the time they believed this book was written, it was after the temple was destroyed. So then, if that be the case, and I actually found a map, and I think I want to show it. I wasn't really thinking much about that, but I want to show it. I just looked at the link I have for that shortcut. And it's interesting to show what the site is now. I wanted to know what is on the site of the second temple that was destroyed by the Romans in 70 AD. What's there now? Well, it's very, very interesting what's there now. All that remains of the temple is a western wall. So, but they're not even sure, but they believe that was it, the western wall. But then they say, oh, but could have been rebuilt a few hundred years ago. So, people didn't keep records back then. Or 500 years ago, 800 years ago, never mind 19 centuries ago. So I'll bring that up in a minute or two. But continuing to focus on this business about the temple. So the temple was destroyed, so that it must be the temple of God in heaven. Well, why in the world would they ask Patmos John, that's what we'll call him, Patmos John? Many people believe that's not the same John as the Gospel of John. But why would the angel, it's never God, it's always an angel, ask him to measure the temple of God? And it's got to be the temple of God in heaven. That's ridiculous. And actually, come to think of it, it's definitely the temple of God in heaven, because Only this book is talking about an altar where there's people inside worshiping, or angels too, and other people groaning and complaining. So that makes it just totally sure that he's talking about the temple of God in heaven. So God is asking him supposedly to measure his temple with a little piece of wood. And that's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. Totally ridiculous. And then it goes on, verse 2, but the court, which is outside of the temple, leave out. Oh, don't do that. And measure it not. And then it says, for it is given to the Gentiles. So we just affirmed that that's the temple of God in heaven. Now they're saying, they don't know what they're saying. Because it's, like I say, the temple of God in Jerusalem was destroyed 20 years before this book supposedly was written. And even if this book was written in 70 A.D., they didn't worship in the altar. It says, in the altar and them that worship therein. Nobody worshipped inside of an altar. Only in this book, the book of Revelation, do they talk about that kind of thing. And so, it doesn't make any sense, of course. So, for it is given to the Gentiles, this outer court, whatever, and the holy city shall they tread under foot 42 months. So what is that supposed to mean? What does that have to do with measuring the temple? I think a lot of people, a lot of well-meaning Christians and leaders have studied this book because they like to solve riddles. And this book is just full of riddles. And they say, who is the woman that rides the beast? I'm just going to sum up those chapters when I get to them. And everybody has a different idea who the Babylon, mother of all harlots and abominations, is. Some people think it's the Catholic Church. Some people think it's the United States. Some people think it's Israel. But in reality, it's all just not true. It's all been fabricated. It's very detailed. Well, how can a man that doesn't believe in God die, right? Goes in the hospital and they give him all this morphine, he dies. He's a fire chief, right? And then he's taken on a trip through the universe, right? He's flying through the universe, and then he lands on a planet, and then he's talking to some being that's like an energy form. How can that happen? We have no idea. So this book was made supernaturally by beings, some kind of. Why does God, God allows the devil, we believe in the devil, right? And we believe all these angels also are with him. He lets them operate all over the place all the time. So here it is. Here is the map of the temple complex in Jerusalem where the temple stood. I don't know if you can see it, how good you can see it, but this is a pretty good image of it. I can't get any better than this. But we have the Dome of the Rock, and I looked into that a little bit, and they hide the information. No Christians are allowed in here. Now here is the Western Wall tunnels. The Western Wall. Here's the Western Wall down here. Just this little area right here. So it's supposedly where the wall was. And then there's tunnels that were there that lead underground. That would be interesting to see. That's a dangerous place. I would not want to ever go there the way it is. But the Dome of the Rock, it's a Muslim shrine. And it's a Muslim shrine that is built over this rock. I did see a picture of it. It's a rock under the shrine. It's not like a building. I guess you can go in there if you're a Muslim. If you're Christians, no other religion is allowed in there. So apparently they own that land in Israel. And somebody made a comment, says, why hasn't Israel destroyed that? Good question. So it's a building with a dome, and it's over this rock. So then we have different quarters here. We have the Muslim quarter. We have the Christian quarter. Here's the Holy Sepulchre Church. And we have the Armenian quarter. We have Christ Church in there. Then we have the Jewish quarter. I just noticed something else that doesn't make any sense. They're claiming this is the Muslim quarter, right, on this map. But then over here it says St. Anne's Church. That doesn't make any sense. So we have a Catholic church. Sounds like a Catholic church. The Pool of Bethesda, which is a Christian site, in the Muslim quarter. And then you say, well, this is the Jewish quarter. I think it looks like this Muslim quarter extends over there because we have a mosque over here. 2 mosques, actually. So this must be part of it. Down below, we have the City of David down here. They're claiming this is the City of David below it, right next to it, where he had his palace. And we also have Hezekiah's tunnel. He was trying to escape when the Babylonians came in to take over Jerusalem. So getting back to where we were here in Revelation 11. Then it goes on, it changes the subject, like a totally different subject. Never says why the temple had to be measured. So verse 3, and I will give power to my witnesses. What witnesses? It's like this is the first time it's been mentioned. We already have a witness. We have witnesses. We have Jesus as our witness. We have Moses as a witness. We have all the prophets. We have some of the disciples as witnesses. We have current people some of them are witnesses here and there. And they shall prophesy 1,260 days, clothed in sackcloth. So this is contrived. Verse 4, these are the 2 olive trees. No, they're people. They're not olive trees. And the 2 candlesticks standing before the God of the earth. That's very dramatic. And if any man will hurt them, fire proceeds out of their mouth. I think not. No, that will not happen. There will be no fire proceeding out of the mouth of any man, ever. Keep that in mind. And this book right here, see the crazy stuff that's in this book? He's claiming that these men of God, the witnesses, are going to be fire-breathing, and that the fire is going to come out of their mouth. No, that is not ever going to happen. Never going to happen. It says, and devours their enemies. And if any man will hurt them, he must in this manner be killed. Okay, so if anyone was to hurt these witnesses, then that person should be killed the same way. Let's see if that's true. These have power to shut heaven, that it rain not in the days of their prophecy, just like Elijah. They copied it. and have power over the waters to turn them to blood, just like Moses. It's copying. They're copying again. They do this through the whole book. Plagiarizing. And to smite the earth, hit the earth with all plagues, just like Moses. No, they didn't do. That will not happen. That will not happen. As often as they will. Oh, yeah, they're free to do it constantly, just like Moses. No, that's not going to happen. And then I wrote down here, the writer is copying the 10 plagues of Egypt again, and also Elijah. That's what they're doing. So here I found verses to prove what I'm saying. 1 Kings 17:1 from the contemporary English version. Elijah was a prophet from Tishbe. That's the way they're doing it in this version. In Gilead. One day he went to King Ahab and said, I am a servant of the living God, the God of Israel. And I swear in his name that it won't rain until I say so. There won't even be any dew on the ground. See, so that's the same thing that the writers of this book of Revelation are claiming. Same thing. And it just doesn't happen in the New Testament, in the New Covenant. That kind of thing is not happening. It hasn't happened and it won't. But I think they wished it, so they wrote it. Then verse 7, and when they have finished their testimony, the beast that ascends out of the bottomless pit shall make war against them and shall overcome them and kill them. So here we are again with the bottomless pit. We got some crazy beast coming out of it. I talked about that in the last message. There is no such thing as a bottomless pit. I talked about it in the previous message. So then the beast should have been killed. So the beast should be killed in the same way that they were killed, because it said, however they're killed by whoever will die the same death. But we don't see that. We don't see that happening. So he supposedly kills them, but thank God they're imaginary. They're imaginary characters dreamed up by the writers of this book. And then we look at, move up to verse 11 and 12 over here. And after 3 days and a half, the Spirit of life from God entered into them. They're copying Jesus now. And they stood upon their feet, and great fear fell on them which saw them. Ooh. And they heard a great voice from heaven, saying to them, come up here. And they ascended up to heaven in a cloud, just like Jesus. How coincidental. And their enemies saw them. We already have Jesus ascending up into a cloud. We already have that account. And I wrote, this mimics and copies Jesus' resurrection and ascension. And then I included some of the verses that talk about that. Mark 16:19. It says, so then after the Lord had spoken to them, he was received up into heaven and sat on the right hand of God. So that would be his ascension. They don't have the word ascension in there, but somehow he was received up. They don't go into any detail about that. And then we have Luke 24:50 and 51. And he led them out as far as to Bethany. And he lifted up his hands and blessed them. I'm talking about Jesus. And it came to pass, while he blessed them, he was parted from them and carried up into heaven. That's all they say. So apparently he ascended. No detail, as usual, in this case. But we do have the Acts. The next one I'm going to read, the last one. And you'd think it would be in the Gospels. right? But somehow it ended up in Acts 1:9, right here. And when he had spoken these things, while they beheld, he was taken up, and a cloud received him out of their sight. So that's interesting. Just the way they mentioned in the book of Revelation about a cloud, see? The same thing. And so that's mysterious. And so a cloud received him. He went up into the sky, and then he went into a cloud, and the cloud took him in. But then they don't say anything else after that. Did it shoot off like a UFO? Did it disappear? It's amazing the lack of detail we have. Amazing. And looking back again at this verse here, so these witnesses, they ascended up to heaven in a cloud. So they went in the cloud, supposedly, and then they went up with inside the cloud. The same thing. It's just total plagiarism, total copy from the Gospels. So I'm going to leave it right there, and then we'll look at Revelation 12 next week.